Good afternoon. How you doing? Welcome to another program in the series of What's on Your Mind. Program is produced by Break Tru TV, and I am Carl. Also got in the studio with me today a wonderful guest, brother Simon Solomon. Let me say good afternoon. So how you doing?
Good afternoon, Carl. I'm well, thank you very much. And yourself?
I'm fine, thank you. Let me say welcome to Break Tru TV and Break Tru Studio.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you. We look forward to having a chat with you later on. Also, how was your journey here?
There seems to be a lot of roadworks going on at the moment, and I'm wondering what the local authority is up to, digging up all these roads. I wonder who they're burying underneath.
I suspect, and I'm sure I'm sure you'll agree with me. Is it because of the Commonwealth Games?
It may well be,
Yeah.
but you never know.
You never know, because they did it. As I know they're doing all kind of everywhere you go in Birmingham.
Yes.
There's a roadworks. Let me say welcome to the program, and
Thank you.
as I'm going to be asking you a few questions, and I'm going to have my rant, and I'll look at a few stories, and I want you to tell me what your opinion of a few of the stories that I'm going to be looking at as we go through the program.
I certainly will do.
And let me say welcome again to Break Tru TV. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
So there you have it, guys. So I start, as you know, I always start with a few things that is actually happening around the world. It could be like from the week before or last couple of days, and some real story I want to explore this week. So one of the major stories, the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, has announced that shops and transports are to wear masks once again because of the pandemic, the Omicron pandemic variant. So that is back with us again. Another variant is back with us. And the government this time, there seems to be gone in there very, very quickly. They're not as slow as last time. So it's a little bit worrying towards some people, you know what I mean? But you just don't know how that one's gonna go. But the other thing as well, you see, he introduced, say, mask for shops and public transports. Now, I think they've actually missed the trick here, because no mask when you go to the cinemas, when you go to clubs, or when you go to the movies. So it doesn't make a lot of sense within that category, but they have to do what they have to do. Yeah. Looking at my next story. My next story is a young African American. No, my mistake. Not an African American. A young Caucasian American has walked free from court. Now we see this young man running around with guns. He looks well trained, and he's killed 2 people and injured another 1. However, he went to court, and he was backed by certain groups. I suspect he was backed by the gun lobbies in America. And he has all these different followers, and his crocodile tears actually set him free. I can't help thinking, if he was an African American, what would have happened? Can I draw you on that one, sir, Simon?
Well, yes. It's a good question, actually. My own view is that had he been an African American, he wouldn't have lived to get to court. Unfortunately, if we look at the history of the way African American men in particular have been treated, as compared to white Americans. I mean, some may recall the young white Caucasian who murdered 9 people in church.
That's right.
9 black people in a church.
Yeah.
And the police arrested him, stopped at one of the takeaways on the way to prison because he was hungry. So treated in a very humane way.
Yeah.
I really could not see that happening with a black man, a black American. And you're probably quite right. I suspect that, certainly the news that I was reading about this young man, Kyle Rittenhouse, or Rittenhouse, I think his name is.
Yeah, Rittenhouse.
He was definitely supported by the Republican conservatives.
Yeah, totally. And that leads me to the another case where Aubrey, or Mr. Aubrey, he was also killed by 3 Caucasians. He was chased in his car, and they assumed he was actually doing something,
Yes.
which he wasn't doing anything. Jogging. He was jogging. That's the only reason why he was executed. I have to call it executed. A 25-year-old young African American. You know, we've seen this so many, many times, and even though the 3 Caucasian has been found guilty, it doesn't eliminate the fact that is, in all these cases, they had 11. They have 11 jurors, and 1 African American. The system is changing.
Yes.
What do you think?
Well, I refer to the American justice system as the American injustice system.
Yeah.
You know, that's how I viewed the American system of justice for decades. That, you know, for the past 100 years, that has proven to be the case.
Okay.
In a sense, it was almost surprising that the jury found these
I know
3
exactly what
white
you're gonna say.
Caucasians guilty.
Guilty.
Particularly as you say, that there were 11 white jurors and
Yeah.
only 1 black member of the jury.
Yeah.
That said, the facts were so obvious. You know, it would have been a real travesty had they not found these 3 men guilty, and probably riots would have ensued.
Yeah. Okay, let me move on. Now, we come home. Now, a 13-year-old in Birmingham, he was shot in the back, not too far from here, just down the road. And we see the statistics shows a rise in crime in young, not just African Caribbean, but young men being killed on the streets of Birmingham. And I sometimes wonder what is going on. You know what I mean? I said, this is a 13-year-old. He's critical a couple of weeks ago, and he got shot in the back. We also see the case of where Keon Lincoln, the 15-year-old, who was actually killed. He was actually killed by, the final bullets was by a 14-year-old. Yeah. 3 others were sentenced for 19 years. And also a 19-year-old who supplied the weapons was also sentenced. And I can't understand why 3 young teenagers, so young, having guns and killing people on the streets. But I'm going to come back to that a little bit later on. Yeah. Now, I go abroad, which is, pick this story up in the Jamaican Observer. Police has counted 30 stab wounds to a young lady. Her name is Naila Dennis. She was only 21. And I say she had 30 stab wounds. By who? Her ex-lover. I don't know why people do this sort of thing. And I don't know what is going on. And she actually talked to the Jamaican Observer. And she actually says, it was coming up to her birthday. And before it was her birthday, she was actually, you know, having her birthday. And then she was going to turn to God. She now feels her only choice is to turn to God. She can hardly walk. She can hardly speak. And the police have said they are still looking for the suspect, which is a very, very bad story, that one is. And I hope she recovers very soon and she's able to walk again and talk again and enjoy her life. Yeah. Now, this is where I actually look at sports. Now, sports. The former England captain, Michael Vaughan, and this has been going a while. This is like a big story. And it has actually brought a scandal within cricket. And he's actually has been left out of the Ashes. No, he's not playing the Ashes, but he's a commentator for the BBC. And he actually been left out of commentating for the BBC. And the BBC has said, in relations to the ongoing allegations of racism, the former England captain has allegedly racially abused Mr. Rafiq. And he has denied it, but he's also come out and apologized. So he's come out and apologized what actually happens to Mr. Rafiq. It leaves me thinking, well, why did you apologize if you haven't done something? Anyway, as I say, he's been dropped out of the of the England, of the representing as a commentator for the BBC. And that stories keep going on. And Michael Vaughan, the fast bowler for Jamaica, the ex-fast bowler and commentator, has commented on that story and saying that the Yorkshire Cricket Board need to clean their act up. Simon, anything about sports?
Well, as a former cricket player myself,
Wow.
It's not surprising, really, that you'd find racism going on in cricket. I mean, it's widespread in football. So why is it not?
Cricket?
Racism is an institutional thing in this country. That's the unfortunate thing about it. But slowly, all these things are coming to the surface.
Yeah. And I said this one has taken a long time within cricket. You know what I mean? Everybody say football, as you say.
Yes,
But this has taken a long time in cricket. You know
yes.
what I mean? And it's we know it's there. It's not we don't know. We know it's there. You know what I mean? Because we've seen it over the years and we know it's there. So it's not just sort of jumping out at you, but we know it's there. But when you actually see what is coming out in the press and certain people are investigating and saying, you know what I mean? And in one article I read, Michael Holding, the former West Indian fast bowler, and he was a commentator for one of the channels. I think it was actually Sky, and he actually says basically they need to clean their act up. And he says back in the 70s and the 80s, when they was actually playing cricket, they never come out and say nothing. And in his new book, he's got a new book out. You need to read his book. In his new book, he says they never actually come out and say nothing because they fear it might interfere with their career. But he actually wrote a book, and it's actually good to see that he's actually coming out and saying a lot of stuff like this now. Yeah. So let me move on now. Still sticking with sports. The fastest man in the world. I love this one. Who is the fastest man in the world?
Good question. Lewis Hamilton, I'm assuming.
No. Track athlete.
Right,
Apologies.
okay. Be specific.
But track athlete. Anyway, the fastest man in the world, Usain Bolt, is to have another statue mounted in Off-Sun Sports Complex in the United States. It's actually in Florida. And now, a lot of people, I've got to jog your memory about this because Usain Bolt is 8 times Olympic gold medalist. He's also 11 times world champion. He holds the world record for 100 meters in 9.58. He also holds the 200 meters in 19.9 and the 4 times 100 relay in 36.84. So, I think that title's going to stay for a long time. It'd be good to see if he was actually running again, but it's not. So I'd say it's I got to say congratulations to Usain Bolt for actually having another statue, and this seems to be going all around the world. But that's how it goes. You gotta celebrate your championship. Now, my next one, as you know, motor racing. Now, we're coming down to the wire where motor racing is concerned. And Lewis Hamilton has won the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. It wasn't an easy race. Um, the boy, or the man, Max Verstappen, he seems to be pushing and pushing and pushing because he's never been a champion. So he wants to be champion. And I can't help thinking he's actually trying any tricks that he can. You could say some of these tricks are not quite fair. For example, we see the start of the race here. And as it comes to the corner, you will see it's quite a cut in front of Lewis Hamilton. So we'll look at this again. There you have it. Now he knows if he puts Lewis Hamilton at the race, he's going to win the championship. And different sports writers and different sports commentators has also reflect in this. In another part of the race, he's actually, because they had 2 red flags in this race, and in another part of the race, is actually where he was asked to give him back the place to Lewis Hamilton. But he sits in the middle of the road. He's not the left and he's not the right. He sits in the middle of the race, which is not racing. Here we are. Now, Lewis end up bumping. Lewis actually bumps into the back of Max Verstappen's car for the simple reason the instruction never came quick enough. And as I say, that race was chaotic. I know both of them exactly, the skilled driver, they know exactly what they're doing. Max Verstappen does know exactly what he's doing. Lewis Hamilton also know what he's doing. The other thing is that Lewis Hamilton, I got to say, is one of the coolest drivers you ever see. He's one of the safest drivers you will ever see. He hardly ever gets into these scrapes. And it takes me back to a time as well when even Max Verstappen is a little bit hot-headed. Rosberg, when Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton was at Mercedes, before Rosberg left Mercedes, Rosberg and Lewis got into a little scrape. What you call a little scrape. However, Toto Wolff, the boss of Mercedes, called both of them together and says, stop it, cut it out. We're in the same team. Now, somebody from the Red Bull team actually need to talk to Max Verstappen and say, listen, calm down. Because he's not only doing this to Lewis Hamilton, he's actually doing this to other drivers on the track. And people like Alonso has also said, this man is a little bit dangerous. And the F1 rules seems to be favoring Max Verstappen instead of playing it fair and, give both of them the just reward. So we'll see how that will shape up next year in the next season. Let me move on. Right. So that's my bit about my racing and that's all. As I say, as you know, I am a big motor racing fan. Now, we come to entertainment. Now, Barbados has become a republic. And they've also as well given Rihanna a National Hero Award. And as I say, it was Barbados become a republic on the 30th of November 2021. And it's also the same day that they actually celebrate their independence. And Queen Elizabeth II is no longer the head of state in Barbados. Simon, Barbados, what are the advantages and the disadvantages of Barbados becoming a republic?
Well, I mean, the real advantage, of course, is that they can regard themselves, whether this is in reality or not, they can regard themselves as being separate from the monarchy. The monarchy is no longer the head of the country.
Yeah.
That has to be a good thing. That has to be a positive.
Yeah.
Because we cannot, as a people, whether we're in the diaspora or on the continent itself, still have white people as being the people that we have to go to as the head of our state, the head of our nation. So that's a plus. The real question is whether Barbados will step up to the plate in terms of being able to properly run the country as a republic.
And bearing in mind, a lot of their the biggest trade is tourism. So you're always going to have that influence or that tie, aren't you, there? You know what I mean? So and other people going there and influence that, aren't you? You got to have that.
That's right. And one must remember that at one point Barbados was being referred to as Little Britain or something.
It is referred
to,
yes.
So it really is an achievement, it seems to me, for the government of Barbados to cut ties with Big Britain. or Little Britain, senior Britain, shall I say? Put it that way.
Yeah. And we see other islands. We see Trinidad and Tobago is actually also a republic. Do you think more Caribbean countries should go, as West Indian countries, Caribbean countries should go to be a republic?
You see, I'm not so sure about the republic thing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that the republic as, if you like, an institute actually works. I mean, the USA is a republic.
Yeah.
The United, I'll say states.
Yeah.
Won't use the other word. The United States of America.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, I haven't seen what they have in terms of the governance document for Barbados.
Of governing the country. Yeah. Of governing it. That's right.
You know, it can be tricky calling yourself a republic.
Yeah.
Because if, for example, they're going to separate themselves into various states. You'll have the same kind of nonsense you have in America, where you have one state saying we're not going to mandate vaccines, another state
so we
completely different.
Yeah.
So that's something they'll have to work with.
Yeah. But they're also still in the Commonwealth. That is also another big influence, isn't it? Well, what we could say, the big guys, who we call the big guys, influence the Commonwealth, don't they?
Well, that's right. I mean, I'm quite cynical about using expressions like the Commonwealth. I mean, it's a common association of nations. Yeah. But where's the wealth going to?
Exactly.
The wealth is still with the big boys, as you say.
Yeah.
Those who govern the Commonwealth, which comes back again.
That's right. And sometimes you feel, I can't help thinking, me personally, sometimes I feel those countries hasn't got sort of a major voice, because the big boys will say,
that's right. They don't have a voice at all.
Yeah.
That's the reality. So it remains to be seen whether Barbados, as I say, steps up to the plate. And truly becomes independent, shall I say, independent.
Yeah. I would say, and there's also talk on now, because there's also talks that say Jamaica should become a republic, but Jamaica's been talking about this for a long time, and I hope it's not becoming like what we say, a copycat syndrome, because they've been saying this for quite some time. I think even Portia Simpson did say that, and they still haven't sort of step up to the plate.
Well, the Jamaican government currently has no vision, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
So, excuse me, in order to even see yourself as a republic, you have to have a certain vision.
Yeah.
I don't think the government of Jamaica has that kind of.
What do you think that
vision.
is? What do you think that is?
Well, for a start, they're still in bed with people that they shouldn't be in bed with. Whether it's the United States, whether it's China. They're not really looking out for the people.
Yeah.
And it seems to me, excuse me, that's an absence of vision.
Yeah.
Because I think everybody's seeing this. They seem to be selling off the assets of Jamaica to either the Chinese or anybody makes the bigger offer.
The thing that actually worries me is that, as you say, they're selling everything off to the Chinese or whoever they may sell it to. The thing that worries me is that, what worries me way down the line, in probably not in my lifetime, but you never know, is the fact that when China comes and says, listen,
where's my money?
Where's my money? And you haven't got the money to pay him. Right. What's going to happen?
Right. Which is what is being reported as taking place in Africa at the moment.
Yeah. What's going to happen?
China is providing massive loans to certain nations.
Yeah.
Uganda was the most recent.
Yeah.
And when the nation is unable to repay that loan or meet the terms of that loan, there would seem to be a clause in those loan agreements that enables the Chinese to exert set an influence on the nation.
I almost fall off my chair when I realized the harbour, Kingston Harbour,
Yeah.
what was allegedly one of the biggest harbour in the
Yes,
world.
yeah. One of the biggest deep port harbours in that area.
Yeah, it was sold off. Anyway,
Absence of vision.
we'll move on. So I'm still talking Rihanna. Now Rihanna, as I say, has become a national hero of Barbados. A lot of people have been criticizing Rihanna for the way she dressed and that sort of thing. But I may come back to that at the very end of the program. I also need to move on to the reggae album nominees. Now, we've had for the the nominees took place a couple of weeks ago for the 2022 Reggae Album Grammy Awards. And we have like Gramps Morgan with an album called Positive Vibration. We have Sean Paul with an album called Live and Living. We have Spice. Spice. That's what I'm going to say, Spice. Who's also has been nominee for another album. And Jesse Royal. So there's quite a few there as well. And now my favorite I got to say about this album. My favorite album is this one. Pomoja. Pomoja album by Itana. I love that name as well. It's a fantastic name. So I do love that album. I played that album a couple of times and I do actually like that album. And there's also an album called Beauty in Silence by Soldier. So we'll see who is being nominated in 2022. But I think possibly Spice got a lot of publicity around at the moment, so you never know. You just never know. Now, as you know, I always looked at somebody who's doing very well. And she's a young entrepreneur. Now, Zahara Brown knows exactly what she wants. She juggles 9th grade at school in St. Kitts and her business. A suggestion from her father, and she has gone ahead with her business. The business is doing great. Be Yourself Beauty is doing absolutely fantastic. She's got her own cosmetic lab. She offers lip gloss. She offers lip scrubs. She does her own package production. She also does what you call tie and dye. She says, I haven't got the time to be bored. Or if I'm feeling bored, I just going back to doing something very creative, which I think is marvelous for a young lady, so young, and still in the 9th grade at school. I would say big shout out to her. What do you think, Brother Simon?
Oh, absolutely incredible. Increasingly, we're seeing a lot of young women and not so young women, to coin a phrase, doing very well in business and more of it.
Yeah, fantastic, fantastic. Now, we've reached, you could call me, the ranter. Now, my rants, I go back to the story which we see this Caucasian man running around the streets and killing people. And he also claimed it was self-defense. I don't know how self-defense that is. He actually killed 2 people and injured another man. And as I say, the gun logistics in America seems to be backing him and his crocodile tears. And as I say, we talked about this a little bit earlier on. If he was an African American, he would have been.
He wouldn't have lived to go to court.
He wouldn't have lived.
I don't think.
He wouldn't have lived to go to court. Yeah, he wouldn't have lived to go to court. And as I say, it's the law seems to be in favor of Caucasian people. That is a strong statement to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. Especially in the United States. We know it's happening all over the world, but especially in the United States. And we need to have grassroots people. We need to have African American, more African American lawyers, more African American judges, more African Americans in the House of Representatives doing something and fighting for this. Because in when the march on Washington, when Donald Trump was in power, with the march on Washington, where we all those people was rushing. There was actually people, and it makes you think something serious is going on in America. There was actually people there. They was carrying guns, backpacks on their back. They was armed to the teeth. In a country where gun is free for everyone, it makes you wonder what is going to happen. Brother Simon, can you enlighten me? Any enlightenment on that?
Well, you have to remember the history of America, you know, and the so-called pilgrims who were essentially invaders of the Americas, the North Americas, the South Americas. And they took control of the land by the same gun culture that their conservative members are still holding on to. So the whole United States of America was built on violence, using the gun. So when you see young boys like, young man,
Kyle.
18-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse,
yeah.
You know, carrying a shotgun to a rally, you have to ask the question, well, why are you doing that in the first place? Why are you carrying a gun to a rally? And then you end up killing two people, wounding another. And a jury with a judge who was clearly supporting this young man, giving the prosecution a real going over when they were presenting the prosecution case. So he was supported by the court, supported by the judge, supported by conservative Republicans, supported by the gun lobbyists, because this is a nation that was built using the gun. You know, it's a wild, wild west. So it's not surprising that in a sense, that he was acquitted. I'm just, I'm thankful for the small mercy of the three murderers of Ahmaud Arbery being convicted. The thing now, of course, is to wait and see what the sentence is going to be.
Yeah, and
is it going to reflect the fact that a young 25-year-old African-American man has lost his life?
And Georgia was on the edge, wasn't it? Georgia was on the edge because a lot of people thought he actually was, as you say, he actually was going to get off.
Yeah.
So Georgia was actually, and we know the history of Georgia. You know, we know some of the stories of Georgia.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And it still seems to be going on. You know what I mean? And I can't believe. I do believe it, and I know exactly what is happening. I can't believe that even jogging, a young man was jogging. You know, a jogging.
Well,
it's
you see, you've heard the expression. You heard the expression "driving while black." Well, he was jogging
while black. You know,
you know. So, or he could be walking by black. You're, as an African American, you're a target.
And it hasn't. It goes on for so long. It's come on for so long. In the 60s, it was exactly the same thing. And it doesn't seem to be changing. You know what I mean? Everybody says things are changing. It doesn't seem to be changing. And where do we go? Where do we go?
Good question.
Where do we go?
Have we got time to discuss that? Yeah, it's a serious issue, and as you say, it's been going on for the longest time.
Yeah.
We're talking centuries, really.
Yeah.
It's only in recent times that you're actually getting a few of the white murderers of African people being convicted. You know, murder of George Floyd.
George Floyd. You know what I mean?
You know?
There's actually a clip that I was trying to get the video of it. There's a clip where all the African American who's been chastised by police for doing nothing, doing nothing. You know what I mean? They have all been killed.
Yeah.
Yet the armed Caucasian, they were disarmed. The armed Caucasians, they haven't been killed, but they was all disarmed. And this is the incident here where we see Aubrey, Mr. Aubrey, being chased up the street. You know what I mean? And being killed on the basis assumption, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous. I don't know.
Well, this is something, as I say, it goes back to young Trayvon Martin, with Zimmerman being acquitted of his murder. And the most ridiculous thing I heard recently is actually supposedly suing the family for allegedly having a witness at the trial that told untruths, as a result of which his mental health or something of that ridiculous nature has been affected. So can you believe the murderer of this family's son is now suing them for compensation for somehow that he's been affected by the backlash?
Absolutely.
Only in America is the expression.
Only, and he probably will. He probably will be.
Well, ancestors willing, hell no.
Hopefully not. hopefully not. It's as I say, it's an absolutely disgrace, and it as I said, I don't know where it's gonna end. I don't know where it's gonna stop. And as I say, we we need more than a year to actually talk about things like this. I mean, we need your Now, the other thing I want to go is to, we mentioned Jamaica, but because I was born in Jamaica, and it worries me.
Mm-hmm.
It worries me when I see the crime rate of Jamaica, which is young people. It worries me. I know a lot of people, it doesn't bother them, you know what I mean, but it worries me because I was born there. I've got a lot of family that comes out of Jamaica. Families in the States, families still in Jamaica, families in the US of A. So it worries me. My ancestors who came from Africa, we know the story of that as well. Where them drag out them out of Africa, rate them off and put them back into Jamaica and all the rest of it. So we know that. But it worries me when I see young Jamaicans killing each other like there's no tomorrow. In 2020, 1,300 Jamaicans were murdered by either gun or knife crime. In 2019, 1,339 with the same figures. Different figures, but the same time. In 2018, 1,287 was murdered. We come to this year, 1st of January to October, 1,078 murdered. It's not the end of the year yet. What is driving this? What is it driving this? Is it sometimes the lyrics in the music? Is it is it the WhatsApp? Is it social media? Because everybody go on social media and they say whatever they want to say now. So what is actually driving this?
Good question. Are you expecting me to provide an answer, Carl?
We're having a conversation.
Right, where we go for a conversation. I mean, again, the reality is there are so many things that have been happening in communities, not just the Jamaican community.
No, I'm not saying that because I totally agree with you. And I'm not knocking it. I'm not knocking Jamaica for being knocking Jamaica's sake. Let me get that clear out there. I'm not knocking Jamaica because but it's where I come from. It's what we sort of really relate to. We know crime is going on all over the world. But what I can't understand is a little place like that, and I said this before, produce such fantastic music, produce some fantastic lyrics in the music, has the culture that gone straight across the world. Her culture has influenced so much in the world, and then you see they're doing things like that. Not all of them, I must say. Then you see that's
too many of them.
That actually grieves me. That's actually grieves me.
Well, I myself, as you know, Carl, was born in Jamaica. So it's a serious concern for me. But the point I was going to make is there is a general. I'm even minded to use Bob Marley's wording, there's a natural mystic
in the air.
in the air. There is an evil spirit that's in the air, both in Jamaica, both in the States, various other parts of the world. And this is why I mentioned earlier, when it comes to vision, the Jamaican government doesn't have it. It's not just the Jamaican government. But as we're focusing on Jamaica, that's what concerns me the most.
Yeah.
Because you have to have a vision that sees this type of behavior being eradicated.
Yeah.
It has to be taught to young people that life is precious, that life is divine. You cannot simply going around killing each other.
No.
Because in a sense, you're killing yourself.
That's right.
You're all part of the same family.
Yeah, thank you. That is what grieves me so much about it. We are all part of the same family, you know, and that's what hurt me so much. You know what I mean? And I can't understand it. You know, I really can't understand it. And it touched me. It grieves me because you see when I speak with passion. It's coming from right there. You know what I mean?
Understood.
And it grieves me so much. You know what I mean? It's really grieves me so much. And I hope. And it's been going on for so long. Too long.
It's getting worse, as you said.
I'll tell you what, you know, that song you just mentioned, man. I've always heard that song so many times. You know, I played that song many, many times. And when you said there's a natural mystic going on, the part that really gets me is that song where it goes, some will have to suffer and some will have to. That is so.
Many more will have to suffer.
Many more will have to die. And that when I hear that song, I thought, oh dear me, you know. But you just mentioned it has actually, after all these years, you just helped me to understand it a little bit more.
Yeah, it's a serious song.
It is a serious
I was having a conversation with a brother the other day. I say, for me, that's probably Bob Marley's most brilliant song. The lyrics in that song.
It is what it is. It is what it is. And the politicians, you know what I mean? I don't even know what they're doing. You know what I mean? Sometimes I look at things and say, what are the churches doing? You know, the church organizations, or the Christian or even the non-Christians organizations doing it. Because, you know, the church, you know, I always say, well, church, you know what I mean? They should fix up and try and sort these out, teach the young people different things. And I wonder what happened. And there's a lot of things. Now the Prime Minister of Jamaica has also said, Andrew Honis, and he says he's give us, I think, he's celebrating 70 odd years of the JLP party, and he's actually said anyone who's actually caught with a gun illegally, this is him talking. He won't go through. There should be has the death penalty.
All right.
And then that makes you wonder. I mean, he just say that, but he don't even know what to do coming up with a statement like that.
It doesn't.
You see?
He's a man with no vision.
He's coming up with.
You know, I'm being very critical here because, like yourself, I'm very concerned about what's happening in Jamaica. Not just Jamaica, because you mentioned here in the UK, our young people, too many of our young people are killing themselves. The education, they have to be taught the right education. As I mentioned earlier, they have to be taught that they are divine beings, that they are spiritual beings. They should have a respect for their divinity. When they look at each other, they should see an image that's a reflection of not only them, but a reflection of God. You know, and I'm not a preacher, but this is just my perspective on the whole thing. So we have to get to a stage where we are teaching our young people that they are divine beings, that they should most certainly adhere to those ancient rules, ancient laws, ancient universal laws, divine laws that we were taught, that thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not lie. And this is not something just coming out of Christianity. Our ancestors in ancient Egypt, otherwise, well, we prefer to say Kemet. Our ancestors were teaching these things in Kemet. So our children, our young people have to be given that guidance because they're not getting it at the moment, whether from parents, whether from school, whether from the government, because they say the government has no vision. And without vision, what did the brother say? The people perish.
Yeah, and you say that, and what's happened, Simon? What has happened? What has brought? I mean, my mother, my father. I mean, they used to see violence. Yeah, I'm not saying there was no violence because man has always has violence on the planet. You know what I mean? Whether man has always remember, but it wasn't so bad, was it?
No, no, it wasn't so bad. I
You know what I
when
mean?
were
We grew up in well. That's why we can have this conversation with you.
yes,
We grew up in
yes,
well
yes.
structured families.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
With families with rules and families with values.
Yeah.
You know, what happened?
A lot of things have changed. I mean, for example, one of the things when we were going to school, we were taught about right behavior, moral conduct, manners maketh man. You know, the Ten Commandments. You know, I've just touched on. Children are not being taught that in schools
That's
these
right,
days.
that's right.
Are rarely being taught it,
Yeah.
and so the whole concept of God and respect for life
Yeah.
has gone out the window. And of course, that's been exacerbated by the nonsense coming out of Hollywood.
Exactly.
You know, the tell lie vision.
Tell life visuals.
You know,
Yeah.
so a lot of our young people are sort of playing out the foolishness that they're seeing in these movies, and not just movies now. It's these computer games.
That's right. That's right.
You know,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
all about violence.
That is a good answer.
And
That is a good
everything you
answer.
see on TV, whether or Hollywood for that matter,
Mhm.
you know, it's all about the use of the gun, and so that sort of thing has been promoted. And for me, it's quite deliberate.
Yeah.
There are evil forces
Yeah,
that are promoting, pushing this
pushing
thing
that sort of stuff.
to create this kind of chaos in society. It makes it easier for them to take over the society. It makes it easier for them to bring in the army and the police and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
You know, but we as people conscious of these things have to do something about it. Really must.
Yeah, I'll take that point. I see that class. I see that very, very clearly. I see what you're saying. And do things, because like the other thing that has sometimes happened, you know, so you have your children, not me or you, but so you have your children, and you're very strict, and your children are you not strict, but the rules. You know the rules. Rules are rules. You know what I mean? Rules are rules. Now, your child or whoever child, it reaches a society now where a system is like, okay, your child can say, oh, my parents is this and my parents is that. The government comes in and they take your kids, don't they? That does happen.
It happens, yeah.
So the whole family structure becomes broken down, doesn't it?
Yes. If you allow it to.
If you allow it to.
If you allow it to. And you see, as again, as conscious people, conscious with these things, one of the things we have to do is say that the government's view of a family is not my view of a family.
Yeah, so the government...
You have to respect your view of how you bring your children up. Otherwise, they'll end up doing the sort of things we've been talking about on this program.
Yeah. So the government must stay out of your family.
As far as I'm concerned, the government stays the hell out of my family.
Yeah.
Because I'm teaching my family the right things,
Yeah.
my children the right things, to enable them to become the people that they should become, the divine beings that they are and should develop into. Whereas the government has no interest in my children at all. They have no love for my children.
That's right.
So I can't allow the government to take charge of bringing my children
You
up.
can't allow the government to grow your children.
No.
That is a very good point. Marvelous. That is a very... I've thought about it, but I've never actually heard somebody say it.
I'm sure it's there in your inner standing, brother Carl. I know it is. I'm just mouthing it for you.
It is. Yeah, it is there. You know, it's as I say, some of these things you wonder. You know, it's frustrating. It is frustrating, and I look at, as you say, I look at the television. I look at some of the things that's happening. I look at some of the I was watching a program a couple of days ago, and there's a big thing going on about the Jamaica of what you are and what you are. I'm not going to go into sexuality. You know, the big thing that's going about sexuality. And then this, I only could call him an idiot. And because like, see, you got people who puts everything on social media, searching them because everybody can come and talk on social media. What did this idiot have to call him? And he says, one of the things he says, and he's supposed to be like a divine person. Not the way you see divine, but he claims himself to be a divine person.
We have some false prophets.
Thank you. That's the word I'm looking for. So this false prophet. And then he comes up and he says, I think these people should be murdered. I'm not going to say exactly what he should say, because it's even too And I think if you're such a divine person and you're coming out and saying something like that,
Right,
regardless of what the people has been doing, or regardless if you don't like it, you can't come out and say things like that.
Right. Well, doesn't it make you wonder then why there's so much wrongdoing taking place in a place like Jamaica, where there are so many?
Yeah.
I mean, supposedly more churches per mile than anywhere else
Exactly.
on the planet.
I say he was encouraging murder. You know what I mean? Just because he didn't agree with certain people, whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I thought, come on.
That's not how you guide the people, is it?
No, that you can't guide people. Like that.
You see, one of the things that often comes up in discussions I have is whether we should forgive those that commit evil against us. Now, I'm all for forgiving, but I will never forget.
No.
But there are those who take the view that we should not only forgive, but we should embrace those who have committed evil against us. Now, again, I don't go that far, but I won't go so far as to say you should go out and murder people.
No.
What we should be doing is, as I say, is guiding our people in the divine way, which is to follow those old laws.
Those rules, yeah.
Those basic 10 Commandments,
That's right, yeah.
which come from 42, at least 42 laws of living, or declarations of innocence, as our ancestors in Kemet would call it. So 10 is just touching the surface, but we have to be taught those moral ways of living. Otherwise, it's just going to get worse.
And get back to those.
Get back to the old ways.
Get back to those. Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's a good point. It's very prolific. That is very prolific. It's very good.
Yeah. It's this is what I get from the wise scholars that I associate with.
That's your association. That's
what I read.
Big shout out to the wise scholars.
Yes, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants.
We're standing on the shoulders of giants.
Absolutely.
It is actually marvelous. It's marvelous. Well, Simon, I think we're coming to the end of the program. And let me say thank you for taking part in the program.
It's been a pleasure. It's good to talk.
And it's we'll definitely be chatting to you again.
Right. I look forward to it.
Dragging you back into the studio.
Look forward to it.
Say thank you once again for coming, giving up your time, because I know you're a busy man. You know what I mean? So
Indeed.
So tell us about some of the things you actually do before we go.
Well, as you know, I'm a lawyer by profession.
Okay.
I have other creative things that I'm doing. I do a radio program, again, as you know. I'm a writer. I've got 2 books in the pipeline.
Okay, what are they called? Are they
well,
coming out?
Well, if I tell you, I'll have to dispose of you.
I mean, this chapter that you're telling me that. And we've been talking about divine spirits.
Of course I'm jesting. Really. But yeah, I'm hoping, I'm planning that they be out in the spring of next year.
Okay.
They've been in pipeline for quite a while.
Yeah.
So I've set myself a goal of bringing them out in the spring of the new year. One is a novel I've been working on for a while. It's an African-centered love story.
Marvelous.
The other is, for want of a better description, it's a book aimed at younger people, but aimed at raising again the standard that our children aspire to. And teaching them certain laws.
Getting back to those values and back to those standards.
Values.
You know what I mean? That's great.
So watch that space.
I will do. Yeah. Well, thank you. Let me say thanks for coming and gracing Break Tru TV with your marvelous spirit.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. Thank you.
You too.
Thank you very much.
You too.
Bye bye. Well, there you have it, guys. Let me say.